Everybody, I was just checking that it was still morning. It is. Good morning, everybody. It's Tarryn Reeves here from Four Eagles Publishing and the Publishing House Concierge. And today I'm joined by the beautiful Natalie Mazzoni, who is writing a chapter inside of Phoenix Rising, a multi-author book project that will be coming out in September this year. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, Natalie runs the Blended Life Project, and she co-creates with exhausted, frustrated, and emotionally depleted mothers to regain courage, reframe emotional trauma within their family dynamic, and reclaim peace, balance, and happiness in their blended lives using her Blended Life karmic map. She is a leader in the blended family space and, as I mentioned, the CEO of Blended Life Project. Her alternative work is imbued in the belief that self-awareness and personal responsibility begins the process of freeing yourself from the cyclical trauma patterns that keep you from showing up in life. She is a mum of 10 blended family and has successfully doubled the family business whilst concurrently running her 2 other businesses. Wow, Natalie, what a lady. What a lady indeed. Tell us more about how you have successfully managed to blend 10 kids into one family.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but I think in the beginning, I mean, the whole entire process has been a learning process. So we started off with my husband and his 5 biological children. I had 3, and then we've had 2 together since.
Wow.
Yeah, my husband and I had known each other our whole lives. It was a bit of a surreal experience. And our kids sort of knew each other. We live on a small island, and I'd moved to the mainland and moved the kids back here and decided to blend us all together. And then we had another 2.
Quite the journey.
Yeah, it has been. And I'd known for many years, because we run another business together, quite a decent sized business together. Mm-hmm. And I'd known for a long time that it wasn't really fulfilling. It wasn't sort of I knew I wanted to be in business, but I just didn't really know. I just knew that this one wasn't for me. So I started sort of like going back down into my spiritual path after all of the challenges that we had been going through. It just took a real toll on my health, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, like just the whole lot. And it was probably a good maybe 3 years into it where I've just sort of gone like, there's literally nothing I can do here. Like it was more about going within and trying to find that strength within rather than constantly trying to manipulate situations on the outside. And so once I started back onto my spiritual journey, and I had been quite spiritual my whole life, especially like when I was really young and in the teen years. And then I kind of brought myself back to that and started to see, reach out and see different people for different things, like past life regression and all those sorts of things, and just try to work things out on the outside, on the bigger picture. Spent a bit of time doing that, and then I just sort of realized at the end of all of that, even that everything, I had to go within to change my perspective and my expectations, and really bring myself back to the things I wanted for myself and in my life. And once I started to do that, I started to notice it had an outer effect, an outside effect on the family, because I was starting to show up as the person that I was, who I was here to be, and who I was here to be as a parent, and as a partner to my husband, and then just, I guess, most importantly for myself and my own journey. And once I started to come back to that point, I realized it just had a flow-on effect to everybody else, and very much allowed, I guess, the children and even my husband to start showing up as themselves. Because one of the things I had noticed after quite some time was just out of just complete fear of being in this place of the unknown. And it really is an unknown when you're in that kind of family, in the family court system especially. Really unknown. You're really relying on solicitors and judges to make decisions for you. And that's just all based on paperwork. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not living your life. They're not there every day actually seeing what's going on. And so you're really like leaving all of these decisions and your family and all of that up to these people that you don't even know to decide things for you. And so it was a really difficult situation to navigate, probably for about 4 years. And when we sort of started to come to the end of that, and we realised what the system is like, and you sort of start to become a little bit more settled with it all, I guess. That's when I sort of like started to say to myself, like, I just can't keep doing this. My health was suffering. We'd added one and then a second child into the mix, which was great, and like everybody loved that. The kids were so excited, and so was my husband and I. But just all of it was just too much, and I just made that decision that I needed to start spending. Even though we had 10 children and businesses, I needed to start spending more time focusing on myself, because I could start to slowly see the wins that it was having for everybody when I did that. And when you're the person taking care of everyone and everything, it's really important that you're in a place of peace, at least most of the time. Obviously, and out of nowhere, you can't do anything about that. But that's the tools that you need to learn, is how to handle those things that just come from nowhere, those things that you weren't expecting. And you start your perception and your reactions to things start to change once you heal your own trauma. And that was a huge freeing thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how as soon as us mothers are able to approach a situation with space and clarity, that things seem to flow a lot better. And when you do the opposite, it's just everything escalates and it becomes this massive thing that it didn't need to be. And it's like, hang on, why is everyone yelling? What are we even shouting about?
And it was just the frenetic, what felt like just such a frenetic life, where you were just always living on the edge, and it didn't take much for it to be tipped over into like the worst thing imaginable. And that's really where you start to live, is just always expecting, or your perception is always the worst thing imaginable. And it never turns out to be that, but you're just constantly living it, and it takes such a toll on your mental, emotional, and just spiritual health.
Yeah, it's not a nice place to live from. Absolutely. So do you have your own kind of, you mentioned a karmic map when we were speaking in your bio. Tell me more about that. Is that your own unique process towards healing and supporting these moms?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I'd noticed some time ago, when I was going through the processes of finding the tools, and I guess what I now called, like, it's really like, it was like a self-research, was how we were all connected on a spiritual level. So yeah, like they might be Darren's biological children and, his ex-partner's biological children. I've got but on the biggest scale of things, in terms of, like, I guess the spiritual realm, or in karma, we're all connected in the background. And so I started to do, like, once I started to go inward, my gifts started to appear, and the things that I could do, and I started to have these visions. And one of them I can distinctly still remember was just like this map on the wall, and it was like all of our names. It was almost like a family tree, but obviously not. Right. These lines everywhere, and I just started to kind of like really kind of explore that, and I meditated on it, which I'm the world's worst meditator, but I do.
I love it. Oh my God. This morning, I was so proud.
Without my insight timer and something like keeping me there, I'm just not. So it was kind of like, it was like sort of like that point that I could focus on and try to figure out, what am I looking at here? Like, what could I see? And I realized it was just us, and the lines connected, and where the karma was showing, and why the relationships were the way they were, because you could see in our family that some of the children were really struggling with the relationship or the understanding of what had happened, because they had such a connection to the other parent that wasn't, living with us, because we had all parents living with us full time. And so I kind of started to get really curious about that. I went into the past life regression and started to look at the different connections there as well. And then I just realized it was a map that showed me how everybody was connected in the background. And I think that what that did for me personally was it kind of gave me that breathing space to be okay with what they were going through, because then I didn't have that sort of judgment or real fear that I understood what their struggle was, and that it was on a level that nobody could see. It wasn't just the fact that your mum wasn't there or your dad wasn't there or whatever. It was this connection, this karmic connection that you've got with somebody through a karmic debt, either way, whatever it is. And so just through exploring all of that, I've now been able to create this map. That was all I could think of what it was, because it just shows your family, and then the lines of what the story is as to why two people are connected, why one person's connected to so many, why even though they're not biologically related, we've got children that have karmic debts to each other. So it was really interesting and a really amazing process, because it was just so cathartic, I think, as well, to find that out. I had just like the level of stress really kind of was allayed once I realized what I was looking at, and how I could utilize that to help myself heal, but then also this way to help these guys as well, like the rest of my family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine, like, I don't come from a blended family, which is, I have never experienced divorce or anything like that in my family generations ever. But I know people who do, and I'm close with people who have had that. And I can imagine that it's quite hard for the other person, like whether it's the mum coming into, the dad already has kids, that it could be very easy to take it on a personal level, like I'm doing something wrong, they don't like me, and then this whole personal fear and insecurity comes up. And I can see how that map and that understanding and that journey could really be so healing and holding for that mum or dad.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very much for me with one of the particular children who was really connected, or is really connected to their mum. And once I understood what that was and what their karma was between each other, it was just like, that's when I started to really understand the concept of personal responsibility and self-awareness in this whole entire journey as well. And they're the two, I guess, foundation pieces that I go through with people, because it's really important to understand that. And then, like, when you start saying, it's not a personal thing, it's like, it was, I was then able to really enjoy the relationship that I had or was forming, rather than be coming from this place of fear that, and you live in this place of fear very early on, depending on what stage, I guess, people are at as well. Sometimes people have already been through the court system when they meet their new partner and the children and all of that. Some people are just starting out like we were. My partner and that, that part of his journey was only just beginning. And so I saw all of that through with him. But yeah, like you really are able to step back and then enjoy that relationship and see the person for who they were or who they are, who they're growing into. And really support that. And one of the other things that really helped with my, I guess, understanding and self-research was when I went off to learn numerology, and that was probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. Yes, I'm a numerologist as well. So combined with the karma and the numerology, so I guess the karmic map is kind of like the past coming into the present, and the numerology is looking forward and what type of person or what journey they're on, in this lifetime. And your numbers, like, always reveal those, traits and challenges, life challenges and karmic numbers and all of those sorts of things. But once I realized the numerology as well, I was able to very much see and understand why my husband was the way he was, why the children were the way they were, how they learnt at school, their interests, like everything just sort of like fell into place. Like this massive puzzle just all came together. And it allowed me as a parent to really nurture the children, because we have 10. They're all very different.
I struggled with one.
I actually did our numerology in a family tree. And so you can really see the different sort of dynamics. But once I kind of understood that and, understood the numbers and the role that they play in their lives and their journeys, just as a parent, it was so much easier to show up for them individually, and you expected things. You start to expect and understand why your kid doesn't want to be at school and why he doesn't get that. And like I have two of them, both 5s. And that's just the way they are. I've got a 7 who is like really internal, like she needs her time on her own. So she's got her own room, and I think we've got every number in our, in our family mix when it comes to numerology. But that's the way forward, numerology, the numbers, the path that they're on here, you know, that they're here to live out in their life, you know, today. Yeah.
How fascinating. How fascinating. Now, you do have a chapter coming out inside Phoenix Rising. Did you want to give us a little bit of a taste tester about what you spoke about in that chapter?
Well, I think I may have channeled most of it because I don't really remember. I do remember.
I love it. Yeah.
I do remember thinking to myself, like because I've always wanted to write a book about the journey. I always kind of like, times would get tough and it'd be all too much, and I'd try to give up the business, and then I'd wake up the next morning with the download. I'd be like, oh, here we go again, idea. So I'd be up and at it again. And so I do remember like writing the book and going, I don't know if I have 3,000 words. Like, I don't know if I have 3,000 words to a chapter. And I kind of got to the end going, oh my gosh, I could write like a 20,000 word book here. Like, I have so much to offer to you and to share. But I think, you know, it just sort of talks about when we first got together, and you know, I didn't really dive too deep into the chapter, I don't think, in this one. But yeah, honestly, I don't even remember much of it. I know I channeled it. Yeah, I very much know I channeled it. It's just about the journey up until this point and why I've chosen to take my business in the way that I have, because I started out not ever wanting to have children. I was going to travel the world, never having children. Wow. Yeah. And then I had my 2 oldest at a really young age, and now I've got 10. So if there's not a story in that for me, or a lesson from the universe in that for me, then, you know.
Sounds amazing. I can't wait to read it. Now, why did you choose to write it inside of Phoenix Rising, or choose to write it with me and Four Eagles Publishing? Was there a specific pull that called to you?
Yeah, I think to begin with, like, I was really sort of apprehensive again, because I'm thinking, like, it's a really vulnerable story, and I know all of our stories are, and I wanted to be really mindful because I have still really young children into young adults, and I don't want to share too much of a story that should come from them. So I kind of, you know, was a bit apprehensive to begin with, but I loved the opportunity because it allowed me to test the waters to see if I did want to write, and also be part of a, like, I love the whole story of, you know, just rising from the ashes, like just going through a tumultuous time in your life, and the things the things that you've done and how you've self-researched to, you know, find the tools, or how the universe has unfolded for you to allow you to just, like, you know, bloom into just, you know, such an amazing life that we're all living now for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I'm hoping that, you know, like, the people that read the book, regardless of what chapter they pick up, will take something from it, because I think, you know, it's going to be the people who are in that moment, like that are sort of, I guess, in the ashes at the moment, that are trying to look for a way to, or just know that there's hope at the end of there's light at the end of the tunnel, because I think you can very much find yourself feeling like you're drowning. Waking up every morning just trying to breathe and keep your head above the water, and just function, whether it's for yourself, your family, whatever it is. So I think this will be a really good book that'll provide that for people. So I'm really happy that I've said yes, and I'm going to be part of it.
Yeah, and we are so happy that you've been a part of our community as well, because each one of the women in these books are just so amazing and so inspiring. And it is, this particular book is that inspirational kind of reaching out and going, you're not alone.
Yeah,
other people have through something similar, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. Keep going. Because without that connection and that community, it can feel really isolating and dark beneath the ashes. But, you know, I want this book to kind of pierce through the pile of ash like a ray of sunlight, and touch their heart and, give them that little, virtual hug that can encourage them to find their inner spark to reignite and, burst forth in all their glory into the next version of themselves. So thank you so much, Natalie. I can't wait to read your chapter, and I'm sure everybody listening can't either. Now, our next multi-author book project is coming out, and Natalie is actually writing in that one too. And it is called Corporate Dropouts: From Employee to Entrepreneur. Meet the entrepreneurs who took the leap and soared. So if you have ever been stuck in the 9-to-5 and you've decided this life is not for me, I am pressing the eject button, then please reach out to me via messenger or comment on this thread, and we'll be in touch to discuss the possibility of you becoming a best-selling author with us inside Corporate Dropouts. Thank you so much, Natalie. I hope you have a wonderful day, and Phoenix Rising is coming out in September.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.